Hello everybody, Dokkan Assets here. Today we are back with another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle animation analysis video. Yes, I'm saying the full government for this one. We are going to be doing STR LR Ultra Instinct Goku today. This man right here obviously just got his EZA, so I figured now was a good a time as any to take a look at his animations. I'm really hoping, by the way, that I haven't done this guy in a previous video, because I swear I remember taking a look at his animations before. So if I did, I'm sorry. But I don't think I did. So either way, let's go ahead and hop into it here. As per usual, we're going to watch the animations one time through on normal speed. By the way, Gurren Lagann OST, goated. Anyway, we of course are taking a look at a unit that is actually a decently bit old. Obviously, this guy came out a couple of years ago in 2020, which is kind of wild to think about. That his animations still look pretty good, all things considered, right? When looking back at this guy for this video, I was actually quite impressed with how good they look. I think if they did make a modern version of this exact moment, they could definitely do some improvements on it for sure. But I think overall, this guy's animations still hold up really, really well. Not to mention, for this video, we also have the SSR and the TOR, which we'll take a look at those first, and we'll just kind of skim through them because it's really nothing crazy, right? But obviously they are unique animations, so we will take a look at them in this video. And we do actually have a side-by-side comparison from the boy DBZ Monkey, so shout out to you, of course, the link in the description as per usual. And this link will just be for tomorrow's video. Go check that out when it goes up. We're doing a video on all these shenanigans here, baby. But let's go ahead and actually take a look at these animations first, because then obviously we'll get to all of Goku's stuff in Ultra Instinct. So this guy has unique animations for the SSR, obviously being the finger gun, right? It's not too crazy of an animation, and obviously I want to focus more on UI, but it is still pretty cool that for an SSR they gave him a unique animation, despite the fact that you're never gonna see this, right? Like, you're never ever gonna see this animation, right? It's very, very simple, almost reminiscent of like a free-to-play card, right? You can see that Goku kind of just fades into standing up. They have his arm move a little bit, he does a couple of blasts, and then they just have a JPEG of Goku sit there, or PNG rather, of Goku just kind of stand there while they have the blast come out of his finger, right? Again, it's nothing crazy, but it's still just really cool that even for an SSR, they gave him a unique super attack. I love that, right? And obviously, because it is an SSR super, it makes sense that it would be so simplistic. But still, it is pretty cool, and I know this one is definitely a bit of an iconic Dokkan super attack when it comes to people in our community, because I know that this particular shot gets memed a lot when it comes to this. So we also have Blue Goku, which, funny enough, Blue Goku's animations, I would say, are worse than God Goku, because it is quite literally just a generic blue Kamehameha, unfortunately. We have Goku's animations in this video, but I want to look at them in the other one because they'll be a little bit bigger. But it is kind of funny to me that, like, you know, they have this super unique super for the God version of Goku here, right? And then for the blue version, it's just like generic. I don't know, it's so weird. Like, maybe it's just because they didn't have as much stuff for God Goku, so they gave him something generic. Maybe it was just like they were cooking in the studio that day and they were like, oh, well, you know, the card art is him doing the funny, you know, like finger blast from the TOP, so he has to have that super, not just a generic Kamehameha. But, like, you know, this is also isn't a generic Kamehameha for the card art for where this is from, so I don't know. But I think it's still cool that they gave him one nonetheless. Let's go ahead now and hop into his actual animations. I always like to take a look at the JP one if you're curious, by the way, because the aspect ratio is always a little bit better. When it comes to this one, right, obviously this is just kind of taken from the phone, so it makes sense that, you know, Dokkan World, DBZ World has it like in this aspect ratio, but even for global, they always make it smaller for some reason. Like, this one isn't really fair to say because obviously this is cropped into the video, but the aspect ratio is always bigger on JP's videos for some reason. I don't know why. Anyhow, one thing that I can definitely say about these animations throughout is the aura, right? The aura is fantastic in every section of animation for this unit, right? Uncontested, this aura is so good. This shot where Goku's just standing here, it looks fantastic. This shot where Goku's about to fly forward, right? Looks fantastic. I don't know how they cooked this hard with the aura, and I suppose it's not terribly difficult to do because you just fade in between the assets, right, of the aura there. But it's still like, man, it just looks so good. And not to mention the little like dots that are obviously an iconic part of the Ultra Instinct aura, right? Those look really good as well throughout. It is really cool to see that they even bothered to include that detail, right? I really, really like that a lot. Now, first of all, this shot of Goku, obviously leaning forward here, does look a little bit weird, right? I think in full animation, it definitely looks a little bit better. But I think it's just their attempt at like trying to get this angle in particular, and it makes it look a little bit weird with trying to have him almost be a little bit more 3D, trying to do some rotoscoping. I'm kind of a little bit iffy how I feel about that cut of animation, but it's not the worst that I've ever seen. And it is pretty cool because the way that they do have him basically fly forward is they just zoom in on his face, and they do this pretty cool effect of, obviously this is supposed to be Goku in the aura zooming, where obviously you can see the speed lines in the background, which I really like that, and the transition to the black background. But the one thing that I will note about this part of the animation before we do move on, it's kind of interesting about the aura, is keep your eyes on where the little like dots are, right? Like the little lines obviously going up Goku, right? They stay in place, as you can see, right? They don't move. They are on the same place that, you know, they were on the screen 5 seconds ago, and they do not move in accordance with Goku's aura. That is definitely not how that works. And I'd venture to guess that this is just a product of its time, right? Because obviously these animations are so old. Wait, that's so crazy to think about. 24 years ago this guy came out? That is kind of wild to think about. I would think that when it comes to the fact of those little dots not being like transferred properly, because obviously the whole thing is that they should be on Goku's body and move with his body, right? Rather than obviously just sticking on the same spot on the screen, right? Obviously, it doesn't really make much sense. But I think if this unit was new, right, they would definitely be able to animate that a little bit better. So that's just one of those things that, like, when we go back and take a look at these animations, that you just kind of have to accept is something of the age that comes with the unit. Regardless, though, obviously the transition to the black background, right, is really, really cool. And not to mention, we have this awesome shot where I believe this would be rotoscoping because they're trying to make it look 3D. Obviously, we're going to ignore the stinky sprite, but, you know, Goku kind of turning around here, obviously they make this look a little bit 3D, and it's very cool. Also, black shirt Goku goes so hard, dude. But yeah, I love the way that they have kind of like this little slow-mo twist on him, because I feel like it works really well for UI, and especially like the concentration, the focus, and also in scenes like this in anime, right? They kind of have that like slow moving transition effect, so I think that's pretty cool. You do then cut right to the fact that it's like, oh, this is supposed to represent how fast Goku is moving, and it's not like, you know, the background is black in reality, because then they cut back to Goku actually throwing the punch, right, which I think is really cool. And not to mention, they also blur it in the beginning, which is another thing that this animation does well, and I feel like it's pretty ahead of its time, to be honest with you, but it's really cool to kind of imply how fast it is, and not to mention moving out of that sequence. But yeah, look at the amazing motion blur that they have on this whole punch. This is so fluid, dude. This punch is crazy. This one punch of animation is animated better than some entire essays. Like, this is crazy, how well this looks, right, when the punch is thrown. So good. We have some cool looking impact frames, and obviously we transition to this very nice shot of Goku with his fist out. Obviously, this looks a little bit weird when we're pausing it, but of course, I was going to say of cooler, but I got cooler on the mind for something. Frieza no brother. Anyway, obviously, we slow these animations down when we take a look at them because, of course, it's easier to analyze and take a look at the details when we're looking at them slowly rather than obviously just rewinding the regular animation over and over and over, right? It doesn't really make sense to analyze it like that. But of course, this looks a little bit silly when it's paused, but in motion, this looks cool. And obviously, the effect is supposed to be that, you know, Goku's outstretched arm, the fist is closer to your face than obviously the rest of his body, right? Which kind of gives you that perspective, right? Like if you put your hand up, obviously to your face, right? The rest of your arm, right, is obviously going to look farther away. So it's a cool little bit to try and show some perspective, and I think it works really well. And we obviously have this very cool little gold effect here, which I quite like. And it's kind of interesting that they just have it sort of dissipate like that. And look at the aura, dude. Oh my gosh. They cooked so hard with his aura, dude. Oh my gosh. So good, man. So then obviously, we have the enemy fly away. You can still see Goku up there. I can't tell if the aura is moving. It's too small to tell. I don't think it is, but like, especially not only, again, these essays are old, but also like, dude, it's so small that I don't know if you would be able to tell if it was moving. It would still be nice, but again, it is an old essay, so, you know, I'm going to cut it some slack. And this is a pretty cool cut, I will say. Obviously, the implication is that Goku is still up on this rock, and cutting over here makes sense because obviously Goku's jumping off the rock that he was standing on, which, you know, works really well. You have Goku moving down here, right? I like the little blur as he passes by the camera. And then obviously, ooh, the ghosting effect is awesome. Obviously, the ghosting effect, right, is supposed to be, you know, the Ultra Instinct, what were those? Not like Speed Mirage. That's not the right word. After image. There we go. I was trying to think of what the Dragon Ball term for it was called. Obviously, the after images of how fast he's moving is so cool. Also, this asset is a classic because I remember this was one piece because they just show this for one frame. So they don't have, you know, like a bunch of pieces put together for this one. Now, I will say with this kick, right, it is kind of interesting because, again, this is definitely a thing of it's an older animation. There is almost no wind up for this, which would be cool if obviously this was remade. They would probably do that. However, I will say they do a good job of kind of making it still feel natural because they have the implied motion be off screen, right? You don't see Goku's leg move, but you kind of assume, oh, it's in this position because it was moving off the screen. So I think in that regard, they did a good job for the, you know, what they were doing at the time. And having this little, you know, blur, obviously, to represent the leg flying at Kefla is very, very cool. And then, of course, you have this very nice kick up, right? I love the little bit of residual movement that Goku has on the kick. Makes it feel a lot more fluid and a lot more impactful, right? Again, the aura in this section is straight cooking. We have the enemy fly through a bunch of rocks here, which looks all right. You know, nothing too crazy, but obviously it don't look bad. And we then transition to the card art. Fantastic card art, by the way. Love all the little explosions in the background, too. So cool. Of course, we then have Goku grip his arm, right? Which, this is basically just a PNG shaking, but I think what's more impressive here is, again, the aura, dude. It just looks so good. We have Goku bring his fist back and then punch forward. I will say, Goku's face looks a little bit weird here, but I'm going to chalk that up to, you know, when we watch this in a second. The, you know, references to the anime here obviously being a little bit weird. But I do like, obviously, the little air effect. I think they do a good job of animating that, right? And obviously, this flies towards the enemy before giving them a little bop and obviously having them go away. I love this way that that dissipates as well, the kind of like little effect that they have on the air as it sort of explodes. The enemy, of course, flies into the rock, and I believe that is the end of the 12 key, yeah. So what is really interesting, by the way, that I've actually never noticed about these animations is they start the same way. The 12 key starts here, right? It all starts with this little Shadow the Hedgehog reference for you. With Kefla and Goku standing there, right? Obviously this would be the other enemy sprite, but you get the point. And then for the 18 key, it's basically just like the landscape has been broken and the wind is going everywhere. It's kind of interesting because it's weird that they just take it directly from the 12 key, but at the same time, it's still cool because it's just like another shot to be in there. But I feel like this animation could have just started with the Kamehameha being formed. Like, I feel like they didn't need Goku standing there, you know? Like, it wasn't necessary. I mean, it's still a cool inclusion because it's just more animation, but like, I almost feel like for the 18 key, it would have made more sense because now this kind of feels like an alternate universe of like, what did he do after this? Or if they wanted to do this shot, they should have done it from a different angle. It's so weird because it's something that's like, I don't dislike it. It's one of those things where like, if I could ask, you know, a Bandai / Akatsuki employee on why they made this decision from a creative standpoint, I want to know. That's my point in talking about this specific piece. Anyway, Goku forming the Kamehameha looks pretty good, obviously with his hands coming together, the hair moving, right? And they have some pretty nice movement on his arms actually moving back, right? To form the actual blast. I will say, again, his face does look a little bit weird in this whole section, but again, we're going to take a look at that in a second when we look at the full animation. I will say, I do quite like how for the end section here, right, when the Kamehameha is being formed, right, you can actually see that the light on Goku here becomes a little bit more blue kind of as it pulls back, which is awesome, right? Obviously, lighting is always very cool when it comes to these Dokkan animations. So then we have this section here where Goku is holding the Kamehameha, and they do, not stretch, they smush his asset right here a little bit, right? Because they don't really, I guess, need to make another one, so they just kind of squish it down because you can see his legs kind of squish a little bit. Obviously, it wouldn't exactly look like that in real life, but I feel like it works okay for just that specific scene. And then, of course, they have him begin to fly forward, right? I feel like if this was remade in the modern animations, it would definitely look a little bit better, right? It's not, like, terrible. It's not bad by any means, but I think it's just one of those things that could definitely be improved, right? This shot is so gassed, though, with Goku obviously flying forward, the side shot of his face. It looks absolutely fantastic. And then, of course, we have the close-up to the eye, which I've always loved that shot right there, right? So cool. Such a nice shot. And not to mention you have the close-up of the little dots, right? They're obviously a part of that Ultra Instinct aura. And you have his eye, right? Get that little glimmer in it right there. If you look right next to the iris, that little glimmer that then forms into the little bit of light that's flying forward. It's such a cool touch. It's like those little things that really make these animations pop. I will never forget that because I love that little bit of animation. Ever since I remember seeing this for the first time, I was like, dude, that little eye thing is so cool. But yeah. We then obviously have Goku flying forward, right? Of course, this is directly from, you know, Goku versus Kefla. And we just have Goku jumping back and forth to avoid these rocks. In terms of this animation, I don't think it's bad. I still feel like it looks a little bit janky at times. Maybe, again, we'll look at the original reference material, but this is one of those things that I feel like could still be improved upon if it was made new. And one cool thing about this, though, I will say, is the aura kind of trailing off him. You can see, like, the blue flames almost, you know, following him as he jumps around. That is a super cool effect, I feel like. Goku also has a Giga Chad chin right there. But yeah, obviously they have him flying up, which is just a PNG, but a really cool way, by the way. I always like the way that they did this. Also, by the way, besides, obviously, that side shot, they just kind of have him coming up. And I've always liked this. Because, of course, in this actual scene, this is Kefla's candy cane beam being fired at Goku, right? So, of course, it is a little bit weird if that was the case because, of course, not every enemy is going to be firing the candy cane beam at Goku. This is the kind of thing where it's a little bit weird for certain Dokkan animations because, you know, it makes sense if they do something that's, like, character-specific to what the person that is in the animation is fighting, and it kind of fits a little bit more for like general enemies, but for certain things it obviously doesn't really make sense. And that's another thing here that I feel like really goes into play, is that obviously, you know, it does not make sense for every character to be blasting away the candy cane beam. So with that being said, I think it's really cool that the way that they handle that, this Goku flip, by the way, looks fantastic. They did a great job on this. The Goku gliding against the blast then just becomes a rock that was already there, right, from their previous fighting, right? This kind of, you know, flying in the air from all those rocks that he was dodging earlier. That is a super cool touch, right? I really, really like that. And that's a great way to kind of use the animation in your own little way while still referencing the original. And by golly, bro, oh my gosh, they cooked on Goku spinning here on the Kamehameha, dude. It's so cool. And the angles here are insane, right? As Goku twists around to obviously then be facing backwards, right? Goku's legs look so cool in the way that they approach the camera, right? And not to mention, they kind of have it look a little bit weird here, but of course, again, it's that after image effect, right? This is the Goku from before, and this is where he actually is. And you can see, you know, this is the Goku from before, and this is where he actually is. And it's just animated so well. It obviously passes by the camera with a super cool angle of the Kamehameha flying past it. And the way that Goku's drawn here just looks so cool. This entire section is awesome. You then have Goku obviously fly forward. They just kind of do a solid PNG for this one. And they do have a little bit of that after, you know, image effect, right? But I do think it kind of works for this because obviously this whole shot is in slow-mo. And Goku is basically in this pose the entire time, right? And, of course, this then transitions into him launching it, which I think this is a good cut, right? It's believable that he goes from here to here, right? Obviously about to launch it. And this looks amazing. Again, I love the, like, stretching and stuff that they do so that when it's in full motion, right, it looks really good. Because obviously this looks weird right now, right? Goku looks like he's getting twisted into a spiral or something, right? Bro's turning into a corkscrew like a Looney Tunes character, but obviously it works really well when it's fully animated because, of course, you know, it provides a really cool angle. And this is pretty well done with the Kamehameha, right? I do kind of wish that there was a little bit more in between this and this, but it's not bad, right? And obviously with the final shot, right, obviously directly referencing that one scene in the anime. I'm sure most of you remember this shot pretty well. This is also what, like, every UI Goku wallpaper was for, like, you know, a solid month when UI Goku came out in the anime. But yeah, they do then, unfortunately, just kind of transition from this to this. I suppose it does work well enough because obviously he's supposed to be launching the Kamehameha quickly. It is a little bit weird seeing him go from the fully blue, which I'm glad that he is because obviously the light is in front of him, so he would be kind of coated in the blue light. But it is a bit weird just going from this to this. Again, I think this is another thing. I feel like a broken record at this point. But if he got an improvement, right, like an updated version or a new version of Omen, right, maybe then, you know, they would fix that a little bit. But this is pretty cool, obviously with the blast kind of enveloping the screen. And then, of course, you see this dark silhouette of Goku, which looks awesome, right? And, of course, then you see it from the side where it blasts away the rock. And, obviously, a very solid Kamehameha where it looks great. And the energy here looks fantastic, dude. Oh, my gosh. The energy effect on the Kamehameha looks great. I love the almost like outer bit as well around the main beam. And, of course, crashing into the rocks looks fantastic. Let's go ahead real quick and actually watch that original reference to the anime here, because I'm very curious. Interesting. Yeah, obviously when it came to some of the stuff in Super, right, I know ironically enough, a lot of the time we're going back nowadays and like looking at things and noticing that sometimes the animation wasn't as good as like it's almost like remembered, which is kind of weird. But you can definitely tell with some of this stuff, right? Oh, that shot they did so good though. A lot of this stuff, right, it was definitely looking the way that it did because that's just how it looked in the anime, right? Which makes complete sense, right? Obviously that then they would do it that way because, of course, right, they're just trying to keep as close to the source material as possible. Thank God, though, for, where's that Goku face? Hold on. Or the one where he's punched. Yeah, thank God they fixed that one, though. What is happening to my boy right here? But nonetheless, I think especially for 2020, they did a fantastic job referencing the original source material to the best of their ability, right? I think even though, of course, this guy still has things about him that could certainly be improved upon, not only for the time that he came out, but just in general, his animations stand up pretty well, right? It's easy to tell that he definitely has a little bit of age on his bones, but I think overall, right, it is just clear to see that even though that is the case, they still do look really good. Like, every time I use this guy, I'm always still pretty impressed with how they look. I'm like, dang, bro, I can't believe this is a 2020 unit. It always shocks me when I read that I'm like, wait, he's that old? That's so crazy to me. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you did. And let me know what you think about this guy's animations in the comments section below. Hopefully you are enjoying his EZA. I know I most certainly will. I already did the event. I actually have to test out my boy on some content. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully we'll get to see more UI Goku Omen animations in the future. I think it would be cool because there is still more stuff that they could certainly take from. I mean, Dokkan hasn't even done the initial transformation scene yet where Omen is first born, where it's first shown in the anime. So that will be really cool when they do a card based off of that moment. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you're excited for all of the anniversary content coming up. I can't wait to take a look at those Gogeta and Broly animations. And don't forget to come back tomorrow because I do have this video about the title screen and Frieza and all that good stuff dropping then. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will catch you in the next one. Dokkan Assets out. Peace.